Welcome back to our channel on this beautiful day, where we dive deep into the ever-shifting sands of Genoa City. The drama is heating up, and we are here to unpack every thrilling twist and turn. Today, we are exploring a storyline that threatens to tear one of our most beloved legacy families apart, pitting father against son in a high-stakes game of corporate warfare and bitter revenge. The Abbott family has long stood as a pillar of resilience and grace in Genoa City, weathering countless storms that would have easily shattered lesser dynasties. Following the harrowing ordeals involving the sociopathic doctor, Lawrence Markham, and the deeply disturbed Patty Williams, Jack Abbott and Diane Jenkins Abbott have desperately sought a period of profound peace and healing. They yearn to rebuild their lives, entirely focused on the sanctity of their marriage and the stability of their family legacy at Abbott Cosmetics. However, this desperate plea for tranquility stands in stark, violent contrast to the burning inferno of vengeance consuming their son, Kyle Abbott. Kyle is entirely unable to let go of the immense pain and suffering that Victor Newman has historically inflicted upon his family. The younger Abbott is vibrating with a relentless, restless ambition, completely determined to make the ruthless Newman patriarch pay for his countless transgressions, regardless of the catastrophic collateral damage it might cause to those around him. Jack and Diane, bearing the heavy psychological scars of their recent traumas, have adamantly refused to participate in Kyle's proposed crusade against Victor. Jack, having spent decades locked in a toxic, soul-crushing rivalry with Victor, recognizes the futility and immense danger of reigniting such a destructive war. He understands that battling Victor Newman requires a descent into darkness that he is no longer willing to make, prioritizing his mental health and his company above ancient grudges. Diane, equally exhausted by the constant threats to her life and freedom, fully supports Jack's mandate for peace. They have drawn a definitive line in the sand, explicitly warning Kyle to abandon his vendetta and focus on the future of Jabbo. Unfortunately, their desperate pleas for restraint only serve to alienate Kyle further, pushing him into the shadows, where he begins to craft a master plan that will completely defy his parents' wishes and jeopardize the entire Abbott empire. Driven by a blinding thirst for retribution, Kyle makes a highly calculated and incredibly dangerous move by secretly reaching out to Adam Newman. The historical animosity between the Abbotts and the Newmans is legendary, but Kyle recognizes a unique, exploitable vulnerability in Adam. Adam has long harbored a deep-seated, explosive resentment toward his father, feeling perpetually marginalized and passed over for the ultimate seat of power at Newman Enterprises. Kyle capitalizes on this mutual hatred, proposing a clandestine alliance that would shake the very foundations of the corporate world. The terms of their dark pact are shockingly treasonous. Kyle agrees to provide Adam with highly classified, internal Jabbo documents, the absolute lifeblood of his family's company, in exchange for Adam handing over closely guarded, irrefutable evidence of Victor's illicit corporate maneuvers and personal crimes. This unholy alliance between Kyle and Adam represents a terrifying convergence of two brilliant, ruthless minds operating entirely outside the boundaries of their respective families. Kyle meticulously prepares the sensitive Jabbo files, fully aware that leaking such proprietary information constitutes a catastrophic breach of trust and corporate law. Adam, blinded by his own vindictive desire to finally dismantle his father's suffocating control, eagerly agrees to the exchange, believing he is acquiring the ultimate leverage to secure his rightful place at the top of the corporate food chain. The secrecy surrounding their meetings is paramount, as both men know that discovery would lead to total excommunication from their families. Yet, the sheer intoxicating thrill of potentially destroying Victor Newman blinds them to the immense, catastrophic risks they are actively undertaking. Despite Kyle's meticulous efforts to conceal his digital footprint, he vastly underestimates the sharp, intuitive instincts of his mother. Diane Jenkins Abbott, always highly attuned to the subtle shifts in her son's behavior, begins to notice alarming discrepancies in the Jabbo servers and Kyle's increasingly erratic schedule. Driven by a primal maternal instinct to protect her child from his own worst impulses, Diane launches a quiet investigation of her own, only to uncover a reality that completely shatters her world. She discovers the undeniable digital trail linking Kyle to the unauthorized extraction of Jabbott's most sensitive internal documents, and their subsequent transmission to Adam Newman. The sheer horror of witnessing her son seemingly commit an act of profound corporate treason paralyzes Diane. She realizes that Kyle is not just risking his career, but he is actively weaponizing their family's legacy to fuel his dangerous vendetta against the most powerful man in Genoa City. Armed with this devastating knowledge, Diane confronts Kyle in a desperate, emotionally agonizing encounter. She presents the irrefutable evidence of his betrayal, begging him to understand the catastrophic consequences of his actions. Diane attempts to appeal to his love for the family, reminding him of the immense sacrifices Jack has made to rebuild Jabot and secure their future after so much turmoil. She warns Kyle that Victor Newman is not a man to be trifled with, and that this reckless alliance with Adam will inevitably end in absolute tragedy for everyone involved. However, Kyle remains stubbornly defiant, his vision entirely clouded by his obsession with vengeance. He dismisses his mother's frantic warnings, callously insisting that he has the situation entirely under control and that the ends will ultimately justify the means. His blatant refusal to halt the operation leaves Diane completely heartbroken and terrified for his survival. Faced with Kyle's unyielding determination to proceed with his treasonous plot, Diane is forced into an impossible, soul-crushing dilemma. She must choose between protecting her son from the immediate fallout of his actions and protecting her husband's lifelong legacy from total destruction. The agonizing weight of this decision tears at her sanity, but Diane ultimately realizes that allowing Kyle to destroy Jabot would be a betrayal of everything the Abbott family stands for. With a heavy, shattered heart, she approaches Jack and reveals the horrifying truth about their son's alliance with Adam Newman. The revelation strikes Jack with the force of a physical blow, instantly shattering the fragile peace he had fought so hard to cultivate. The realization that his own flesh and blood would betray the family company to a Newman is a profound, devastating betrayal that shakes Jack to his absolute core. The subsequent confrontation between Jack and Kyle is a masterclass in familial heartbreak and corporate ruthlessness. Jack, operating from a place of deep, agonizing sorrow, summons Kyle and presents the undeniable evidence of his treason. He expresses a profound disappointment that transcends mere anger, mourning the loss of the son he thought he knew and trusted implicitly. Prioritizing the survival and integrity of Jabot Cosmetics above all personal attachments, Jack makes the devastating executive decision to officially strip Kyle of all his power and responsibilities within the company. This public execution of Kyle's career is a monumental blow to the Abbott family dynamic, effectively exiling the young heir from the very empire he was destined to inherit. The emotional severing of their professional relationship leaves a gaping, bleeding wound in the heart of the Abbott family that may never truly heal. Just as the heavy silence of his termination settles over the room, Kyle unleashes a bombshell revelation that completely rewrites the narrative of his supposed betrayal. He coldly informs his stunned parents that the entire alliance with Adam Newman, the leaked documents, and the apparent treason were nothing more than a meticulously crafted illusion. Kyle reveals that he orchestrated this elaborate ruse specifically to bait a trap for Victor Newman. He explains that the Jabot documents provided to Adam were expertly manipulated, designed to lure the notoriously paranoid and greedy Victor into transferring massive amounts of illicit funds into a highly traceable offshore shell company. Kyle's supposed betrayal was, in fact, a stroke of reckless, terrifying genius aimed at securing the ultimate, irrefutable proof of Victor's financial crimes, setting the stage for a massive federal takedown that would end the Newman reign forever. The sheer audacity of Kyle's masterstroke leaves Jack and Diane entirely speechless, grappling with a chaotic mixture of relief, awe, and sheer terror. Kyle meticulously details how the trap is currently springing shut. He explains that Victor, believing he has secured the ultimate leverage over Jabot through Adam, has already initiated the transfer of funds into the compromised shell company. Kyle has secretly coordinated with federal authorities, preparing to hand over the digital tracking data the moment the transaction is complete, ensuring that Victor Newman will be caught red-handed in a web of undeniable financial fraud. For a brief, intoxicating moment, it appears that Kyle has achieved the impossible, successfully outmaneuvering the most dangerous tactician in the corporate world without actually compromising his family's company. However, the intoxicating thrill of impending victory is violently extinguished in a matter of seconds. Just as the authorities are tipped off and prepare to raid Newman Enterprises, a catastrophic anomaly occurs within the digital framework of Kyle's trap. The critical, highly classified documents that serve as the linchpin of the entire operation suddenly vanish from the secure servers without a trace. A highly sophisticated, unknown operative infiltrates the system, completely erasing the evidence of Victor's involvement and dismantling the shell company's tracking protocols. The sudden, inexplicable sabotage leaves Kyle completely paralyzed with shock, watching helplessly as his foolproof master plan disintegrates before his very eyes. The realization that Victor Newman, or a shadow ally, has somehow anticipated the trap and outmaneuvered him sends a chilling wave of dread through the Abbott camp. The nightmare rapidly escalates from a failed corporate coup to a devastating personal tragedy of epic proportions. As Kyle frantically attempts to recover the lost data, he makes a horrifying discovery regarding the manipulated digital footprint left behind by the saboteur. The erased files and the illicit financial pathways have not just disappeared, they have been expertly rerouted and planted directly onto Diane Jenkins Abbott's personal servers. The sheer, terrifying brilliance of the sabotage becomes agonizingly clear. The unknown operative has manipulated the entire digital landscape to make it appear as though Diane was the mastermind behind the shell company and the theft of the Jabot documents. The woman who risked everything to stop the plot is now squarely in the crosshairs of a massive federal investigation, framed for the very crimes her son attempted to pin on Victor Newman. The realization that his arrogance and reckless ambition have placed his mother in severe legal peril completely fractures Kyle's psyche. Instead of retreating and seeking the protection of his family, the immense guilt and burning humiliation drive him further into the treacherous underbelly of Genoa City. Refusing to accept defeat, Kyle makes a desperate, incredibly dangerous pivot. He seeks out the most chaotic and unpredictable forces available, secretly approaching Matt Clark and Phyllis Summers. Matt, a known criminal with a dark history, is currently defying Victor's threats, while Phyllis, a chaotic force of nature, is blindly supporting Matt's delusions of a fresh start. Kyle recognizes that these two outcasts harbor their own deep-seated hatred for the Newman patriarch, making them the perfect, albeit highly volatile, weapons for his continued crusade. Kyle proposes an unofficial, clandestine alliance with Matt and Phyllis, completely disregarding the severe warnings and moral boundaries established by Jack and Diane. He knows that associating with a dangerous pariah like Matt Clark and a deeply unpredictable wildcard like Phyllis Summers is a catastrophic risk to the pristine Abbott family image. Yet, Kyle is entirely consumed by his need to clear his mother's name and destroy Victor, viewing this toxic partnership as a necessary evil. He begins to share sensitive information and coordinate covert strategies with Matt and Phyllis, actively plotting a new, far more dangerous offensive against the Newman Empire. This dark alliance represents a complete abandonment of the Abbott family's traditional values, dragging their legacy into the mud as Kyle aligns himself with the very elements that Jack and Diane have fought so hard to avoid. The consequences of Kyle's descent into this chaotic underworld are profound and terrifying for everyone in Genoa City. By binding his fate to Matt Clark and Phyllis Summers, Kyle is actively igniting a devastating public war that threatens to consume his entire family. Jack and Diane's worst nightmares are materializing as they watch their son morph into a ruthless, unrecognizable tactician, entirely willing to burn down the city to achieve his goals. With Diane facing the terrifying prospect of federal prison for a crime she did not commit, and Kyle operating completely off the grid with Genoa City's most dangerous liabilities, the Abbott family stands on the precipice of total annihilation. The chilling question remains, will this desperate toxic alliance provide Kyle with the ammunition he needs to finally topple Victor Newman, or has he just handed the ultimate architect of destruction the exact tools needed to bury the Abbott legacy forever?